Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Coffee with Mirko. I believe it's episode 39, a bonus episode. This was a last minute guest joining us, and I'm very pleased and honored to be able to talk to Ralf Rüller, the founder and owner of the Bahn Berlin. So as soon as he tunes in, we'll be able to bring him on. He just sent me a message and he'll be able to tune in. So he had a little bit of a hold up. So thank you for tuning in back in. And yes, if you're enjoying it or you want to share with people, feel free to take a screenshot and send these to your coffee friends or known coffee friends. So I'm gonna send this live invite to Ralf right now, and he'll join us soon. He's I'm very excited, and I got very much a lot of questions for him. But hey, Mama Luna, good to see you. Been to Machine, Hannah, hope you're well. Miguel Mora, Georgie, we are just about to bring Nita. Good to see you again, Nita, from Malaysia. We're just waiting on Ralf, so I just sent him the invite. We were talking, so hopefully he'll be able to tune in very soon. And once he will be able to tune in, we'll bring him in. In the meantime, feel free to drop any questions for him. I'm just gonna pin a comment once he tune in. Hey, your luminous Deno Bush. Where are you from, Deno? Good to see you. I haven't seen you on the live stream. And just waiting on Ralf. He just DM'd me, so he should be here in any minute. Os Consult, good to see you again. Andre Ehrman, back here, back to the start. For the ones who just tuned in, we went live about 22 minutes ago. Ralf had a little hold up, but he just reached out on Instagram, so he'll be able to hopefully to tune in with us real soon. Konko Ngopi Denabush from Doha, good to see you, from the Emirates. Lots of good coffee shops out there and coffee roasters. And Andre, where are you from, Andre? I recognize your name. Jada.ku, Prewolf11 in the house. Feel free to say hi, don't be shy, tell us where you're from, what's your favorite cup of coffee, and we'll try to bring Ralf on real soon. The Silent Man Cafe, let me wave to all of you guys. Welcome, good to see you. Alright. Oh yeah, from Switzerland, but we moved to Melbourne. Oh, Andre, I know who you are. I know even your next project. Let's put it this way. You and I have a good friend in common. His name is Brett. And I know exactly what you're talking about. Your name rang a bell. Of course. Apologies. I know exactly who you are. And you're not going to be far from where I live, actually. Moscow. Mosconsult. Good. Saying hi from Melbourne. Peter Gallego. Oh, yeah. Hey, Peter. And yeah, again, hopefully Ralf is handy with Instagram, because he just texted me that he was available. So let me have a look. I am live now. Please when you can. And we'll go Barn. Hi from Mexico. Good to see you. Habib, BWS, Georgie. Dano, your dream is to work in Melbourne as a barista. Well, once you get that role, you'll be able to. And Ralf is in the house, very happy and very humbling to have him in. And without further ado, we're gonna bring him in because you guys are all here for him. So here he is. Hallo, guten Morgen.
Hello, hello, Mirko, my friend. You look tired.
Nah, you look fantastic, and we're both using the cap because with COVID, my hair is a bit,
Right.
you know how it is. How
Yeah,
are you, man? Nice to meet you, and thank you for coming in, man. I really appreciate it. It's such an honor to have you in. It's yeah, honestly, I'm very, very humble and grateful to have you on.
anytime. Thank you.
And look, first and foremost, I hope that your answer is going to be affirmative. How is you and your family doing with the COVID? Is everyone okay? Are you safe and well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's we're all good, and luckily Germany was not affected as badly, and no one knows why. But it seems to be relaxing quite a bit and quite speedily at the moment. And so everybody's nervous that we get a second wave or another like breakout. But so far, everybody's desperate to get out of the house. So it's really hard to stop people from that. And we just need to see if they keep the distance and be a little bit more cautious. But summer is coming, and we want to socialize a little bit.
Of course, of course. I mean, Berlin especially is quite a dynamic reality, and well, for us, it's the opposite. Winter is coming, quoting a bit of Game of Thrones, I suppose. But look, let's just get a kick started, Ralph. Thank you for giving an hour of your time. And for joining us. But could you please tell us a little bit, how did you start your coffee journey?
I see. Yeah, actually, 10 years ago exactly, on Sunday, we have our 10th anniversary. I opened,
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks. No, I opened what we now call the Little Barn because very small. It's very near my house. I lived in London for 10 years prior to that, and I moved here, and I was looking for something to do with my life that's a little bit more than just going to an office. And I fell in love with hospitality and serving people and being in the community. It felt very basic initially, and I was shocked how much I loved it. And I got obsessed with coffee straight away because there was no good coffee around, to be honest. And that's probably also the reason why we worked with roasters and my circle of friends and my network was more international than anything. So locally, there was no one to learn from.
Mhm.
So that's how it all started. And I think now looking back, I think it still feels like day one, like nothing has really changed. It just got a little bit bigger, and I have to make sure that everybody working around me is playing the same opera and they are not deviating from it. So we like hold it all together and keep our values and so on, which sometimes is a challenge. But on the other hand, I'm really still very happy that our intrinsic values and the philosophy is fully intact, and everybody working with me is believing that in specialty coffee you can really make a change at the source, and educating our customers, sharing experiences and information. And it's just a beautiful community that we live in. So we are really blessed when you look at COVID-19 and people talking about how our interaction as humans in cities and so on has changed. I kept thinking like, yes, it's true, but we already have that in coffee. It's very community based and very
Yes.
real. Yeah.
But yes, I really can resonate with that a lot because I've been in the industry only 9 years, but still, with this podcast, I just realized how tight and beautiful the community is. And I think the reason why for you it feels like still the first day is because you love what you do. I suppose that opening the barn was a call for your true passions.
Totally. I mean, it felt that I was looking for something to throw myself into for quite a few, maybe 4 or 5 years prior to that. And my background is finance. And that was also the reason why I moved to London. And I was never unhappy in it, but also it never really stimulated me. And so I was kind of like waiting for something to fully throw myself at. And it really happened. I got obsessed with coffee, and also hospitality and the people around it. It's really where I felt like, sometimes I feel like my friends are telling me, "Oh, you look tired," and I don't really notice it because you're surrounded by so much positive energy. You don't actually feel that it's work. It's just it's a mix of work and pleasure. Yeah,
100%. And look, it it's not work if you really love what you do, is it?
yeah,
It is work. It's hard work, no doubt. But you sound like you're such in love with the process, and it's like your job is not a defining one. You're a shop owner. You're a barista. You're tasting coffee. You're sourcing coffee. You're roasting coffee. You're testing. But you also have to manage people. But you also need to manage your customers online. Like it's such a multi-faces sort of role. Therefore, of course, well, you don't look tired to me. You look fantastic and in shape. So
yeah.
that's
I mean,
fine.
but yeah, but the diversity you're describing in the job is really, really fantastic, and we are keeping, or I'm trying, I'm pushing to keep it alive by giving the baristas and servers and brewers that are working with me not only like a repetitive job, but we really push them to learn about the farms. So we have a like fully integrated model, and you're walking in and you hopefully feel like my staff really understands the coffee and the story behind it, because it all relates back to the farmer, and we really feel like we have an obligation to present the coffees in the best possible way. That's why we are not serving like cold milk in our drinks or tons of sugar, and we want people to really experience the terroir and the flavor without being too strict about it. But we feel like we want to guide, and we are really truthful to our serving standards, and it's all related to the flavor and the terroir of the coffee. And that's, for me, the farmer, they are putting so much hard work into this, it's crazy. And we really want people to talk about, this farm in Brazil. I don't know, like Ivan and Rose. It's a beautiful couple that are working so hard, and we want their name out so they can really identify with the product. And more people are connected online. A few years back, when you would go to Colombia, people still look at you as you look like a total stranger, because you're they don't see foreigners, but now they have mobile phones, they see their picture, someone is posting about this coffee in some other country, and it really makes them proud. It makes a huge difference. Yeah.
100%. And I think being aligned with your values in terms of translating that with your shop, it's fantastic. Before we go back to my questions, Barry's asking if you recommend Mocha Pot. I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, why not? Anything is fine so long as you put good coffee in, you get great coffee out. Mocha pots are good. Why not?
And Sharon saying your coffee is so fantastic, and she made a swan origami, which sounds amazing.
Oh, cool.
There were other comments saying, "I'm wishing you best luck for your 10th anniversary." And I didn't know that, so that fall very casually. Fantastic news. Now, could you? Since you started your roastery and cafe, you've been pushing the boundaries of coffee based on your pillars. How important is the concept of slow coffee for you?
I mean, we're talking about hand brews, right? And filter coffees and so on. I find it really, I mean, the whole concept of the barn is for people to slow down. So up until recently, we had no music. Now we have a little bit of an like electronic beat in the background, but we never really want to intrude into the experience. We also had initially no laptops. Now we have laptop zones, because you can't say no to rock and roll, and everybody's working from home. But also we really want to create an atmosphere where people are talking to each other, and there's like a coffee house atmosphere, like our parents used to go and flirt or read the newspaper and have a chat. And then, you know, it's kind of like a cultural aspect to it as well. And so we don't have arts on the walls, even though the Little Barn is based in the gallery district, and we have like beautiful artists and they're offering their paintings and so on. And so we said like, no, 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 we say no, really to relax and to slow down and to engage with the coffee. And so the hand brews from the start were like a center point to us, and you need to upsell them. So you need anybody that walks in and asks for a long black, you should upsell an AeroPress. It's a really quick thing to do. To me, it tastes better. I'm not against long blacks, but I think like the flavor experience is a lot more intense in a hand brew, and it's not diluted in that sense, and so on. So I'm a big fan, and we don't serve it with milk, and we really make it a point to talk about that, and that immediately engages the customer with the flavor and with the terroir, and they are walking out and they go like, oh my god, Nano Chalar from Ethiopia, it tastes like peach, you know. And so it becomes a memorable experience, and then we enable them also to share their knowledge because we gave them some little pieces of information and so on. Having said, it's really difficult in terms of labor costs and speed, and we hear so much about like the long lines in Australia, and then people are steaming like crazy all day, and they're like pushing out hundreds and hundreds of coffee. And so it's really difficult then to say like, okay, you know, it takes 3 or 4 minutes to produce a hand brew. So I don't know, it's in busy cities, in very dense cities, and I'm thinking about London also, you don't really see hand brewed coffees, you know. It's just like it doesn't fit into the workflow. It needs to be a conscious decision by the business owner to say like, we have a dedicated brew bar, and I afford a person that is presenting it in that way. So think about it like marketing cost, maybe in that sense, for the farmer.
100%.
Yeah.
I love what you do like that. I think also the integrity of your shop and all the elements enhance the experience, because without music and more focus with the experience, your sensory perception is going to be like, well, hang on, I got nothing else to focus other than the cup and the coffee. And then people can make that conscious choice of choosing the filter bar. And look, I agree. I think a lot of shops here in Melbourne, they're like, you know, steam boxes, we call them. But there's some, there are more of others that are a little bit more brew. But yeah, like you said, busy cities is different. But that's why I like to name the barn, because I think it's like a little get away from the busyness, all the noise, all the rustling. And it's almost, you know, home, you know, you make a home for that 15, 20, 30-minute break, and it's meaningful and quality driven. Now, speaking of Melbourne, Melbourne is considered somewhat one of the capitals of coffee, yet I think Berlin is the capital of coffee in Europe. What's the coffee scene like over there in Berlin for people who don't know?
Yeah, I mean, it quite grew over the past few years. Also because we have so many foreigners and also so many people from Australia, also New Zealand and other countries, bringing this coffee culture and their own twist on it. So I would say in Berlin, you see a lot of Australian type cafes that are focused also on the food experience, not possibly not at the level that you have in Australia, and we are very aware of that, but going into that direction also to offer better food than you would get elsewhere. And it's not only avocado toast with a poached egg. So they're trying to have their like different takes on it, and they make an effort of presenting both really well. So I think in terms of coffee quality, I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. So hopefully in the next kind of like phase, the people that then are established with their concepts and so on, they're also looking for better roasts and focus a little bit more on the coffee quality. But I'd say everything that happened in the past 10 years is definitely much better than what we had before. And it's very diverse also. It's interesting as a roaster, for instance, that in Berlin, you see a lot of coffee shops that are using foreign roasters. They're not so loyal to a local brand as you would have it in anywhere else in the world, where you have a local roaster and maybe you have the barn as a second option, you know, or you run a filter bar with some micro lots and single origins. And in Berlin, there is a tendency to find like a very individual kind of concept, also with a choice of roaster, I would say.
That is so interesting because in Melbourne it's quite the opposite in the sense of people really value locals. In fact, I used to work for a coffee roaster that roasts interstate, so in Sydney, and it was a little bit difficult to introduce a Sydney roast to wholesale cafes as in Melbourne because they favor the Melbourne local, you know, obviously artisan roasteries. So it's very interesting to hear that about Berlin, which makes me, yeah, it's interesting. I think that I like what you said about the food because I was talking to Francesco Sanap, of course, from Ditta Artigianale, and when he came to compete WBC in 2013, that's what he noticed, and that's what he tried to bring back to Florence, Firenze, in terms of that food. And I think the food element makes specialty coffee a little bit more accessible and viable as a business because then you can afford to have less volume of coffee if you're making a little bank out of food, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true, but you need to really understand the dynamics in food. You need a chef. You have to work with wastage if you want to keep it fresh. And so you need kind of like a little bit of volume also on the food side to justify all that. And so it's something just to bear in mind. For sure, you're right. And especially now in the Corona crisis, some of our customers, for instance, in London, the food was really rescuing them because they create a delivery service around it and so on, which we don't really have. We do cakes, fresh cakes, but we don't really have a kitchen. So I think that's also from a business owner perspective, also a dream to get away with the majority of the business being coffee and beans, and to not to have any like worry about the kitchen and the food and so
Oh,
on.
that's fantastic, especially because you roast as well, so that makes a lot of sense too, for sure. Like, and I think you probably have seen a lot of crazy spikes in terms of online orders because you know people are sitting home and they're like, "What am I going to drink?" Which is fantastic, and your brand is recognized all over the world. We all look up to you, even in Melbourne. I know you talked up Melbourne, but we all know who you are, what you do. Now, going on a bit more generic topic, but look, no doubt, coffee is delicious, but it wouldn't be possible without its people and community. From origin to roaster, from baristas to the consumers, I think we often forget about these elements, that we're still a people business. It's a people hub. Could, going back to basics, basic hospitality, people greetings, and combine that with the overall experience, become the element to save the industry after coronavirus?
Yeah. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, yes. What I was trying to say is I think that a lot of times we focus a lot on the coffee, the latte art, but
Sure.
we forgot about the people from origin to the consumer who grabbed that coffee. And I think we need to give value back to the people and the overall experience because it's people business still. We're all about people. It's community, and we forgot. So maybe now it's a good chance to reconnect with the people to save businesses from after the pandemic.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I think for us, we always talk about the community at source and the community and the cafe, and we need to connect them. We really need to understand where the coffee comes from. We need to support them. imagine right now, like all the roasters, they have no visibility about the business, and all the volume is gone. The cafes are closed around the world. The offices are closed. Yes, the web orders are going up, but not everybody's really was prepared for that by having a good web shop or shipping solutions. And it's usually a small part of the business. And the main business is B2B and roasting for your wholesale customers. And that's gone. So the farmers are producing the coffees, and like people are buying a lot less at the moment. It's really, really difficult for them. So for me, it was important to go like to keep the dialogue and keep them involved so they understand. And now we see volumes are picking up again. So we kind of like push a little bit the timeline, but we're still committed and so on. It's really important for them to know, are they coming back this year? It's imagine you put all the effort in producing this amazing coffee, and then you have to put it as commodity coffee to some supermarket chain or whatever. It's not easy at the moment.
No,
Yeah.
I had the blessing to talk to a lot of people, and this is the problem that most roasters are describing. It's going to be at origin. I mean, I think that some of us live in lucky countries, but most origins are already in difficult situations to start with. I mean, I think we go straight into that question because it's related. Coffee is underpriced. And I think it's clear to all of us in the industry, right? Do you think that coffee should be treated more in terms of pricing like wine and like beer, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it opens such a big discussion, that question. But I'm thankful that you are putting it out. But it's a huge industry with so many layers in it. And to be honest with you, I can only talk about my part of the market because I have an impact on my part, and it's very niche. We work with high qualities, but I visit every farm, and I want to have an impact. So I only work with farmers that want to change to specialty and improve, have a protocol behind it, and so on, and then pay them fairly for the result. And it's not like cherry picking in that sense that we only take the best coffees and then we go home. We really want them to improve the P1s, the high qualities, from sometimes only 20% to 60, 70, sometimes even 80%. So if they do everything right, the whole kind of portfolio of their harvest will go up, and then we can buy more, or they sell some of that coffee into other regions and get the branding out and so on. And then there's a market for everything that comes out from a farm. So it's like a salami, someone will take the 82 points. There's always an espresso capsule where you can put in the rest. And it all has a price, but we want the premium part to go up. And that's really where they're making the money. And so for us, we never pay less than the previous year. We only go up. So if the quality improves, we pay more. And so the farmer is really important. They know what's coming, like what price is coming, because they start spending way before, we buy and pay. And so that certainty is quite important. So, and in a sense of setup, we don't work direct. I mean, we have a direct relationship, but we don't have a contract with the farm. We always work with an exporter that is elevating my farmer, because I only go and visit once a year for a couple of days, but my exporter needs to go every week or every other week and check the soil, teach the farmer, give them seedlings, access to finance, machinery, and so on. We have so many examples where farmers that had that advice did a lot better than everybody around. And so once the community sees what's going on at this one particular farm, it starts spreading, and they're doing the same, which is great. So they're learning from each other, and then the whole region is lifting up. So I think we need to do that a lot more. And then obviously, once you have a relationship and you do more, you can go back and have sustainability projects and you're being part of maybe contributing to a school or to health or to education and so on. But I don't feel, for us, we don't make it a huge point in talking about it. It's natural that in a relationship you grow, but you need to start improving the product and the quality with them so they can stand alone even without you.
And I think it's so honorable of you to commit to such a sustainable concept of paying more every year. I think it's really honorable and really good for the entire industry. So thank you for that. And in relation to pricing, for example, there is one roaster in Melbourne that they have decided that on the tasting cards they're given with the coffee, they are actually transparent and tell what they have paid for that green beans per kilo. And I think maybe that transparency will help the last part of the chain, the person who ordered the coffee at the cafe, to understand what and how they can contribute for coffee to become more and more higher quality, and why they paid XYZ per cup.
Yeah, I mean, I understand we have that, it's kind of a movement here, we call it the pledge, to be more transparent and have a transparency report. And we decided not to publish the pricing because, how shall I phrase that without being... I really appreciate the effort of being more transparent and to publish pricing, but I feel once you go to a region and you're trying to find out the cost of production is very, very different in each country of labor costs and the product they're using or not, or keeping it organic and so on. And then also to do micro lots, to do an anaerobic coffee is very different from a natural or washed coffee. So I feel as a consumer, like I have no problem publishing something and say like, wow, I paid $15 for that. But what does it mean to the consumer if it's not in relation to the cost of production of that coffee? So I found it, so long as we don't have some clear reference points of the micro lot level and the cost of production, the farm gate pricing, and so on, I feel it's a little bit misleading, because you can use it as a marketing tool and say like, oh, look how much I paid, but maybe it's an anaerobic micro lot and the farmer didn't make any money on it because he worked like 2 months on that coffee and he only produced like 3 bags of it. So I feel I really appreciate more transparency in talking about prices. And so I would never be against any of that movement, but I feel like it needs to be put into context.
I think we're at the very beginning of it, so lots of people will do mistakes, and eventually we'll find the right formula to translate a good way to connect the two worlds, for sure. It's just the start, because there's only one roaster here that does that. Everyone else is like, they don't do that. So 100%, I get you. Now we kind of reached the half mark of the interview. So I usually ask out of the box question, Ralf. If you could, who would you like to have dinner with?
Wow. That's a good question. Does it have to be coffee related?
No, anyone. Dead, alive, future people, anyone.
I have no idea. I'm not prepared for that question. I probably should say like I shouldn't have any more dinners because I'm like seriously put on weight and have no exercise during this crisis. But I could cook with someone in a healthy way. So it would probably be someone who's very good at healthy cooking or something like that.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Thank you. I think it's a tricky question. Everyone has their own way, and it's interesting. Also, maybe you can DM me later and it's like, you know what, I'll have dinner with Michael Jordan or whoever. Now Mitchell is asking for Ralf a 2-part question. Being a business owner, your brain must be wired. Did you find in the early stages of setting up your business, or you found it hard to relax?
I don't feel stressed at all.
Mm.
So I like the way I went with the flow. You look, I was employee number one. Um, I I started the shop, a very small shop. In case it failed, I thought there's not too much at risk. I started baking 6 o'clock in the morning, and my plan was to open at 11. But then I completely overlooked the fact that there's a school on the other side of the street, and so the parents were knocking at 8. Coffee, coffee. And so the second week I opened at 8. And so I kind of like, and all the jobs in my company I once had. So it's kind of like a blessing and a curse, especially for my staff, because I have strong opinions and so on. And then it takes time to relax and to trust people. And then those relationships are growing with, and it's very people related. And so I never really felt. Maybe starting to roast, I think, was a stress point, because I also opened the roastery cafe at the same time with very kind of strict protocol. And while I was roasting, I kind of like saw my staff at the bar sweating, you know, saying no to soya milk or whatever, explaining the concept. And then I tried to figure out to get better in roasting. And the only way you can do that is practicing. As much as I visited my friends in Scandinavia or in London that were helping me and so on, it's you need to find your own way. So that maybe I was a little bit naive going into roasting. And I think James Hoffman said to me, I was buying from Square Mile at the time, are you sure you want to do that? Because producing a kilo of coffee at our quality is a lot of, there's a lot of money going in. So you need to build a business around it to actually be able to afford not only traveling to origin, but to profile and to have waste and so on. And, someone needs to pay for that. Or moving bags of coffee. You can't put one bag of coffee on a pallet. It's just crazy. And so I feel like building the roast business, it probably helped me not planning it too much, but just going into it and practicing. I think I would always recommend people that are asking about roasting to start and just to like do it and taste it and get a lot of feedback. Send your samples to good roasters, and so they can throw it back into your face, so you can learn from the feedback and so on. So that is maybe something. My job has changed quite a bit over the years, I'd say. And I still miss, and I enjoy most, like clearing dishes and being around the bar and talking to the customers. That's really where I enjoy most. But obviously, I'm a lot on the computer now. I travel a lot. I learn a lot about farming. So I feel like I'm going from one learning curve to another learning curve to another learning curve, and it doesn't really stop. And the last 2 months, I watched so many YouTube tutorials from 15-year-old people teaching me how to use Facebook better and Instagram. And I feel like, oh, that's another learning curve. I'm like learning so much now about how everything is connected. Da-di-da-di-da. So I feel not really stressed and wired. I just feel like it's really going from wave to wave in terms of expanding. And that's the beauty of specialty coffee or coffee, is like it's a constant. No one is finished. It's all, we are discovering so much now. We are going into all these processing types and having Kenya varietals in El Salvador, and having carbonic maceration from the wine industry, and find out where's the balance of getting good flavors without really changing the product and make it taste like Hooba Booba bubblegum, and so just to be truthful to the terroir, which is close to my heart, but maybe pushing a little bit, and have some form of engagement with customers talking about the processing. but without over fermenting something and it tastes like a rotten cheese, you know, that for me, that's not coffee.
That's not coffee. Well, I think it's beautiful what you just said, because I mean, big shout out to James Hoffman. I think his advice was pretty good. It's not easy just to roast, and you need to build a business around it. And look, you know, if even people like Scott Rouse during the interviews said, look, ultimately I'm always wrong, because next month I'll come up with something else, and it's still keep learning despite you'll never reach a point where you know everything. And I agree with you in terms of keep practicing. I mean, Bianca, who just sent through a message, she's a 16-year-old girl from Indonesia, and she started roasting about a few months ago. So, and the only way she's doing it is just keep roasting. And she actually sent me a pack of Gallo single origin from Indonesia, and it was delicious. So, and I think you're right, self-teaching yourself. And I think you're right. Online, there are lots of tools, YouTube, Instagram lives or whatever, where you can take notes and learn. And even if you take one thing out of someone and take it home and was like, you know what, I'm going to let that digest, process it, and then apply it. You know, I think it's very important. Now, speaking of which, I read in an article that you were part of that one of your obsessions is quality. Why?
Well, everything else already exists. It's kind of boring to replicate. I feel like we are specialists, and that's the name. And you know, it's specialty coffee. And I feel that sometimes we're in this bubble and we think like everything we know, everyone knows. And the smallest and simplest thing to just teach someone or experience through taste, the flavor, is changing the mind. And one person can be like a domino, teaching other people. And we have that quite a bit in our spaces where we say like, hey, you're asking for a flat white every day. Fuck it. Why don't you have a hand brew? You know, I have this beautiful Ethiopian and it tastes like that. If you don't like it, I make you a flat white. Just today is not a flat white day. And then they taste it and maybe they don't like it. It's not their thing, but they will talk about it. They bring other people and they say, look, they're doing this here and it tastes amazing. You should try that. Have less milk, don't, you know. And I think a black coffee can only enjoy it if it's at a very high quality and if you don't kill it in the roast.
Yes.
If you don't burn it like a burnt toast. And only then, yeah, and it's the best vegan product. And we have a huge vegan movement here in Berlin, and I'm sure it's global. But especially in Berlin, your people are very aware of how they eat and what they consume. And I feel they should drink black coffee only. And you can only do that if you have an expressive, clean, and flavorsome experience.
100%. Black coffee is the most sustainable, because coffee itself is not very sustainable if you want to macro. But once you start adding on top, you know, even almond milk or soy milk or regular milk, there is so much more resources in there. And you're right in terms of the quality. A little story about me. I started only drinking coffee a few years back because I find myself behind this amazing Slayer, this mentor of mine. We had 7 grinders, and at the time we were pretty much all our single origin were from Joseph Brodsky 90 plus. And my first ever V60 was a Licello. And that changed my life. It was like, hang on, this is not coffee. Because non-coffee drinkers or people who drink it with sugar, with milk, they expecting the bitterness. That's what they want to go away from it. So they think black coffee, bitter, non-enjoyable, waste of time and money. So I had the luck to be exposed to super high quality right away. So that's what converted me super quickly. And yeah, I was very lucky for that. Thanks for sharing what you just said, by the way. I think you're super right. Ralf, if you could change one thing of the industry, coffee industry, what would that be?
To focus on the product more than on the branding. So for me, yes, we're being Instagrammable is very important, and to reach a community also through aesthetics is very important. But I find the packaging is not more important than the content. So if you have, or the other way around, if you have a great packaging, please make sure it's amazing coffee inside and not just a box. So for me, that's hollow.
I can relate super to that, and without making people upset, but I find that we have a yeah, that's something that I've always said around down here, especially we have a lot of roasters, Ralph. Like it's silly how many roasters we got. We're lucky, but you're right. If it's like fine dining, right? You expect your meal to be just as good as your service, the cutlery, the venue, the music, the smell, the cleanliness. Everything needs to match that quality. You're right. Like, what's the point of putting burnt toast like coffee into a super pristine, amazingly looking bag? And look, I do social media for a living. That I do it just for coffee businesses and cafes and restaurants, and I let them always know there's no point to lie to people and make look your shop like what is not. Period. That's my philosophy. Otherwise, I don't touch it. If you ask me to make your shop look like what is not, then I don't want to do business with you. I'd rather not taking your money. I resonate super well with what you just said, 100%.
Yeah.
And if anything, I had always the argument that if you put the same, coffee in just the same bag, which one would taste better is what more important it is.
Totally. It's kind of like a nightmare for, like, our packaging is extremely basic. It's probably the most boring in the industry. It makes it harder to differentiate on our web shop, and like we were thinking about ways of like how to make, and but it's kind of, we know that the people that relate to what we do, they kind of start reading and start exploring, and they're asking questions, and we really like that engagement. It's like a barista on the bar recommending something, and
Correct.
so it's triggering this interaction rather than isolating and just spend be with the box. Yeah.
I get it. And look, Rennie is summing it up pretty well. Hey guys, Rennie from Singolo, it's a roaster in Sydney. We love our minimal packaging with cracking coffee inside. Perfect. That's all that matters, 100%.
Yeah.
Now, going more a bit more generic topic, because you're super experienced, do you have any advice for people who are chasing their true passion, which is coffee, but they're stuck with a good job? Society tells you to be in finance, to be a banker, a dentist, a doctor, but they hate it. Let's say they hate it and they really would like to get into coffee. What would you say are the first steps? What would you say that you were in those shoes?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tricky. It really depends on the personality. Some people need the security, they need the income, they created a lifestyle
Of
around
course.
it, and they probably are a doctor for a reason. They studied for it, and they also believe in it, and maybe the routine is giving them the feeling that they need to change and their life and so on. But it really, when you're ready for it. And we had quite a few of those cases that came onto the barista side, and they wanted to, I think that's maybe good, to take a sabbatical and just learn from someone and get some experience for a couple of months, or use your holiday. And it can only be like a week. It's really, really hard work to be a barista. It's like when you see these model shows, they say like, oh, you're just walking. No, I'm not just walking. It's hard work to present something, and to work something and to make something look very, very easy is a very hard craft and a skill set that you need to learn. And it's very physical. It's like you're standing like 8, 9, 10 hours in a coffee shop. It's really, really hard work, and the payment is not super high. So that's why we need to promote more expensive coffee, people paying more for it. So then ultimately we can also pay a little bit better, but it has to come from the inside because you're following that passion. And then probably someone coming from like the environment you just said, they are probably thinking then after learning, and that's what I did. I worked for someone for a year and a half just to learn hospitalities, and I just cleaned dishes all the time and, served people and really learn how to be, a good host. And then you start your own business. So it's probably you have a plan in mind, but it's not. It's not just, I mean, it's not, you don't buy the puppy for Christmas, you have it for life, it's like a changing, it's a fundamental shift, and you need to accept that your income will be different for quite a while. Well, in my case, 10 years.
And thank you. What you said is, is fantastic. That's what happens here in Melbourne. Is there's such a frenzy. Let's open a coffee shop seems very romantic. People romanticize the idea, but they don't work that 1 year cleaning dishes. They don't learn. They just jump in it. And I think you're absolutely right. You should at least do a year and a half of apprenticeship before you can start. Bonnie's saying, love what you guys do at the barn. I used to travel to Berlin regularly for work, and every time I visited, I had to come to the shop to buy beans because of the quality and taste.
Thank you.
So there you go. Now, with so much on your plate, and you can remind us how many cafes you go and roasteries, how do you manage your work life? What's the balance?
I don't have a balance, unfortunately. I don't know. I get up, I make my coffee, I sit on the computer, and then my day starts, and then it's midnight.
And what coffee is there in the morning usually? What do you brew in the morning?
I always brew with 60. I have to be honest, and sometimes I do an AeroPress. But for me, I wake up when I smell my coffee, and it's like a routine. And then while I enjoy it, I look at the social media. I still do everything by myself, so all the posts and the comments and respond to direct messages is still me. Which is not really sustainable, but I feel also it has to be real. And so, I don't know. So I do that while I have my V60. And this morning,
it's like stretching. It's like a stretching routine for the morning.
Right. Yeah. And then I have a little home trainer here, but I only just walk by it and say hello. And I don't use it very often, but I know what I should do, and so I have kind of the infrastructure in place, but I'm not using it. I'm really bad at that. Yeah.
Well, you got a lot going on. I think it's very understandable, and the barn wouldn't be the barn that's recognized globally if it wasn't for you keeping it real and genuine. It's you behind the design, the sourcing, the quality control, the responding to the comments. So you're keeping it real, and keep it real, brother. Like that's absolutely something to keep in mind for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't do it without my staff. It's absolutely essential to find people that are carrying your message and also your values. And I have to say, I'm extremely lucky to be surrounded by a lot of amazing people. And most of them are not German. It's really interesting. I have 22 nationalities, and I'm in minority.
Wow. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know. It just, well, initially I always said like people from other cultures have a stronger appreciation for coffee, and they're coming from cultures where hospitality is a craft and not something you do while you're a student. Probably a lot of that is still true, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Tall Americano is asking a tricky question, but feel free asking who are your top 3 coffee people. But I mean, they're all favorite, but I suppose who would you like to meet that you haven't met? Maybe that's a way to look at it.
Oh, I don't know.
Or who inspired you? Maybe who inspired you in coffee? Maybe let's change the question.
Okay, in terms of people, I mean, everybody that is really engaged and is pushing, and we know those names. These are the people that probably were once in barista competition, or they worked in establishing a cup of excellence, which I find quite important, and have a voice to really make a change. And if you look to the States, for instance, but also Australia or other countries, the Nordics, I'm a huge fan of some of the people there, and it's always been guiding me. But I find um, um, if we go back to Square Mile and what James and Annette are doing, I found that really impressed me in terms of sourcing and also having a product that's at a high quality and it's approachable. I find it very real. But also Tim Wendelbo, for instance, was always a huge and still is a great inspiration. And I love talking to them, and we often disagree on things, and it's really refreshing. And so I find respect is a very important word in that context. And I find like respecting what people are doing. And for me, it's always related to the product, the way someone is trying to improve roasting or approaching roasting or work with farms, or is sharing knowledge here in the communities. But also a very simple thing, train your staff. Just don't just put them on the espresso machine. You need to teach them. And so I feel that's also a very strong obligation to evolve people. They're coming to you because they want to learn something. And so, and which is tricky in Berlin because there's so much temptation to do something fun.
Yeah, of course. Berlin is a fun city.
So, but we have a training center, and people need to come and they need to talk about the coffees and present them and learn. I find that quite important.
Yeah, and Ralf, it was my bad. Tall Americano, actually, I read the question wrong. What's your top 3 coffees, your favorite coffees? I read coffee dudes, but that was a great answer anyway.
I saw that.
That's still a good topic. Ralf, before you answer that, we are very quickly approaching the hour mark, and Instagram shot it after that gives us a little 30 seconds alarm. So it's always tricky. So before we go on to the last question, I want to say thank you on behalf of the coffee community. Thank you for what you do, but also for sharing an hour of your time, of your busy schedule. Obviously, happy anniversary for Sunday. And I'm feeling very humbled and grateful for I had the chance to meet you, even if it's virtual, and share this hour together. So thank you.
Thanks.
So you can close it with saying what's next on your planet, and also answering Tall Americano. Let's say the top 3 coffees that you enjoy.
Okay. I really like Kenyan coffee, and recently Radio Farah from Indonesia was blowing my mind. And I have to say, because I owe it to the people in Brazil, they're doing a fantastic job. There is great coffee in Brazil. So anything you're buying from FAF, for instance, is absolutely mind-blowing and is resetting my whole opinion about Brazil. In terms of projects, I'm building a roastery right now with a small annex cafe. Yeah, I couldn't stop it. It was a running project, and then the crisis came. But in a couple of months, we are making a move, and we're really excited. It's kind of a very positive, motivating thing in this crisis, although it's a little bit risky. But we're really much looking forward to have a new roasting space in Berlin.
Fantastic news, Ralf. I'm very wrapped for you, and I hope to. Well, are you traveling anytime soon to Melbourne?
No traveling. No.
I will have to travel to Berlin to visit you in person. I really look forward to share a cup of coffee together. Again, thank you very much for tuning in. You were so nice to sharing all your stories and experiences, and people who rewatch this will see value, and this is what it's all about. And hopefully, I'll add a little story with your profiles for the people who tune in next to come and say happy birthday, anniversary, and As I mentioned, it's 26 seconds to go. Ralf, auf Wiedersehen, Dankeschön, and hope to meet you very soon, brother.
Thank you very much. All the best. Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks, man. Have a lovely day. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you all for coming. It's 9 seconds left on the stream. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, just share it again, and I'll see you tomorrow.